kahika o te Nehenehenui, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Nau mai, haere mai ki te whare o te reo irirangi o Maniapoto. Welcome to another webinar series, Te Puna Kōrero o te Nehenehenui. This platform is where we kōrero with experts within their respective fields, discussing what matters to you and your whānau, and also giving you an opportunity to ask questions from the experts directly. You can pop your questions in the Facebook comments section below, and we will get through as many of those questions as we can this evening. Well, today the Prime Minister announced some significant changes to the COVID-19 framework with the removal of vaccine passes, vaccine mandates, QR scanning in, and changes to gathering limits. But more importantly, that as Auckland is just over the peak of the Omicron outbreak, it is expected that we will see a nationwide decline in case numbers by early April. But catching COVID and isolation is still very much a real situation for our whānau here in Maniapoto. And tonight we hear from the team behind the newly established Pūtiki Hub and find out what has been put in place to ensure whānau in isolation are receiving the care and support they need. And so to help answer this and give an oversight into the Pūtiki Hub, it gives me great pleasure to welcome to tonight's show Keith Ikin, Chairperson of the Maniapoto Māori Trust Board, and Amberley Elliott, CEO also of the Maniapoto Māori Trust Board. Tēnā kōrero. It's a real privilege to have the Chairperson and the CEO join us this evening. It's lovely to see you both. Tēnā kōrero. Now, I do need to point out that we had planned to have Dr. Sarah Shasha join our panel this evening. However, as to be expected as a doctor, she has been called away to deal with other matters, but we're really happy that Amber Lee has been able to join us this evening. So, tēnā koe, Amber Lee. Now, we're talking about the Pūtiki Hub, and I guess before we get to know a little bit more about the Pūtiki Hub, let's quickly just check in to see how you are. And maybe if I can begin with you, Keith, how are you? How is your whānau? How's everyone managing, this pandemic at the moment?
Oh, tēnā koe, Winitana. Good to join you tonight. Whānau was good. Myself and my son have actually just come out of isolation. So we've had COVID. We were tested positive just almost 2 weeks ago. So we've done the 10 days in isolation. My son got through it relatively unscathed. But I will say that anyone that says that COVID is nothing to really worry about, I would really strongly argue against that. It is not a pleasant experience. It really does knock you around, and it's like nothing that I've ever had before, to be honest. I would be, really making it clear to anyone that was to say that COVID isn't really anything we should have any real concern about, that it is a serious matter. But good to be through it and out the other side and back out into the real world again.
Ka pai. Yeah, we're glad to see you and your whānau come through it nicely as well. So thank you for joining us this evening, Keith. Amberley, tēnā koe, how is your whānau? How's your whānau been coping with the COVID situation?
Tēnā koe, Manitana. Interesting. COVID is always a tumultuous time for whānau. And so we do our best. And I guess, reminding ourselves around safe practices, etc., and who and how we interact with. With my tamariki, it's always, constant reminders, constantly. So, yeah, we are well, but otherwise, thank you.
Ka pai. Glad to hear that you and your whānau are well, and once again, thank you for jumping on board this evening. Keith, if I can come back to you, it's been a busy few weeks for you lately. You've just come out of a successful AGM. How is everything at the office for you at the moment?
It has been a really busy time for our staff within the trust board. We have just completed a week and a half ago our first fully online AGM for the tribe. Very pleased, Winitana, with how that went. We've had really good feedback, really positive feedback from our people. A lot of engagement, online engagement in the course of the day, and overall, as a board, I think we had a fairly positive report to present to our people in terms of what the board has been working on over the last 12 months. But on top of all of that, we've been dealing with COVID, and it's our staff within the trust board who have been our front line right from the very first time. I think it's almost a 2-year, it's almost been 2 years now since COVID first sort of hit the headlines here in New Zealand. But right from that time, our staff within the board have just really been outstanding. They have just put our people first. They've been willing, able to do whatever is needed to be done to support our people in the COVID space on top of their day jobs. And I just can't speak highly enough of the team within the board, all of our staff who have done a wonderful job and continue to do a wonderful job for our people.
Yeah, absolutely. It does sound like a very busy time period for you all. And Amberly, how have you settled into your role as a CEO? Is it what you had expected the role to be so far?
Not at all, if not bigger, and no day is the same. Winitana, I knew it would be a huge piece of mahi, but with the support of Keith and the board, and also our staff settling in, I don't think you can ever settle into a CEO role of a iwi organisation. You just got to run. So long as I'm running next to somebody or with somebody, yeah, we're doing good. Thank you.
Ka pai. Well, Etiwi, don't forget that if you wish to ask Keith or Amberly any pātai, you can post your comments, post your question in the comment section, and we'll be able to ask that question to Keith and Amberly in just a little while. But if I can come back to you, Keith, now we know that some whānau who are watching this evening have missed the official media release, the official announcement today of the Pūtiki Hub. So just wondering if you could just kind of take us back to how this concept, how the Pūtiki Hub came about.
It goes back a number of months, Winitana. Since COVID first hit, actually 2 years ago, one of the first things that we did within the trust board is that we convened a group of key organisations across our rohe. That includes the mayors, it includes some of the key government agencies, it includes representatives from our kura, the food banks, the key people within our community who have all been doing amazing work over the past 2 years to support our families through this COVID situation. So we had convened that group 2 years ago, and that group continues to be active. And so we got to around about October, November last year. This was prior to the spread of COVID through our communities. And as a community group, we put together a proposal, which we forwarded down to Wellington in November last year. And a key part of that proposal was to set up a hub within our region to connect services and support to our families that needed that support. So the thinking and the design of this does go back some months, and it's been the product of teamwork, the product of a lot of people within our community contributing their thinking and pulling that all together and developing out what became our proposal to seek resourcing from government to set up a community response initiative. And that's been that's where the development of Pūtiki began.
And it certainly has been a very collaborative approach with the establishment of the Pūtiki Hub. Amberly, are you able to share with us the process of how exactly our whānau get support from the Pūtiki Hub, how they can engage with the hub?
Yeah, sure. So there's two ways that they can engage with the hub. The first way is they can connect through Here to Help You. So as a provider, we are connected on that platform and system through the WISE group. So if you head to heretohelpyou.nz or phone them on 0800 568 273, a referral will be put through, and through our Pūtiki Hub, our call centre will pick that up and triage it. And then we will either keep it or we will push it out to other providers depending on what the need is. The second way around how people can connect in is through our call centre again, and through their mahi that they have been trained through the Waikato DHB about the National Contact Tracing System. So that system is the main system nationally that records and houses all the COVID positive cases. So our call centre will do the first engagement calls with whānau. They'll do the triaging, they will do the follow-up wellbeing checks with COVID positive cases. And that's through daily caseloads that are allocated by the DHB. So that part is more outbound wanitana, but there's certainly inbound opportunities that our whānau can utilise.
Kapa. And if I can just stay with you, Amberly, because we understand that with the Pūtiki Hub, we have navigators and manurukurua. Are you able to kind of explain the role between a navigator and that of a manurukurua, and just kind of touch on just some of the training that they've needed to acquire? I see that you spoke about the National Contact Tracing System. So could you just touch on some of the training as well?
Yeah, sure, kapai. So navigators are our call centre, and so there's two parts of training that they have had. One is the National Contact Tracing System, what I've just shared. So that included two, staff and support teams from the Waikato DHB, online training, shadowing, coming out on site, doing live calls with COVID positive whānau. The other system is around the Here to Help You program through the WISE group. So that is the triaging system for us and whānau seeking essential provisions while they're isolating at home. Our manurukurua team is the name that we refer to our ringaropa, our team that are on the ground, on the front line, taking care of supplies, liaising with food banks and other providers, as well as doing the deliveries to our whānau isolating at home. So our manurukurua team are out and about in the community, responding to our whānau as need be.
Ka pai. And Keith, we're a community where everybody knows everybody else. So just wondering, what steps are in place to ensure that, whānau who are calling in don't get whakamā, potentially talking with a navigator or having to see a manurukurua who could very well be their own whanaunga, that could be, dropping off essential items to their whare. So, how do we navigate that space so whānau are needing a hand up, don't feel whakamā, accessing this service?
Yeah, the really critical thing, Winitana, is that we really want our families, our whānau members, to, once they become a close contact or a positive case, to isolate. And we don't want them to think that should they have to isolate, that they're on their own, that there won't be any support, that they won't be able to put K on the table. We want to totally take those fears away and really encourage and support our whānau members to isolate. So that's the first thing. And so really to help to facilitate that to happen, and one of the key reasons why we wanted to have Pūtiki, this hub located within our own community and facilitated by our own people, is that we think it's going to be way more effective for us to be looking after ourselves. So, you know, whānau members will have their own whānau members involved, whether that's within the call centre or whether that's working in the community, providing essential goods and kai out into whānau households. It will be people that are known within the community, people that are likely to be, you know, someone that you have a connection with. And we're hopeful that that connection will be one of the critical success factors in ensuring that our families do isolate and do take the time that they need to take to get themselves well and then get themselves back out into the community. If we have people that don't isolate and are positive cases, then that just accentuates the rapid spread of the of COVID through our community, and that's exactly what we don't want. So isolation is critical once you become a positive case, and knowing that you've got support while you're in isolation, and you're going to have your own whānau members supporting you in the 7 days required for you to be isolating. You know, that's what we think is really critical about the design of the Pūtiki hub.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can come back to you, Anne Billy, you've shared with us the contact 0800 number, and our whānau can see that at the bottom of the screen. Are you able to share with us just the hours of operation? Because we know that it's live at the moment, live today. But yeah, can you just share with us when our whānau are able to call in?
So through to here to help you, you can call any time. So in terms of Pūtaki operational hours, those are 8:30 to 5, 7 days a week. Here to help you, don't quite have the operational hours winitana, but what I can say is if they should call after hours, there is a message option, and so as soon as the centre reopens, you know, they will be responded to and their message will be picked up. So so even if our whānau don't get to talk to a navigator or they don't get to talk to a call centre operator, someone will respond. So if that's some assurance I can give to our people.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and the key is certainly for our whānau to certainly make that contact. You know, Keith, today we heard from the Prime Minister, and she had some really big announcements to make made today, and in particular, she made comments in regards to Auckland passing the Omicron peak. And that across the nation we will see a decline in case numbers. What's your thoughts on what she had to share today?
Yeah, well, I think there's so many unknowns with these pandemics, and I can understand the government making the decision that it's made today. I don't think there's anyone that isn't hoha with having to deal with having to deal with the situation around COVID. And I think everyone is keen to have the country back to how it was. But there are some real significant unknowns. And if you have a look around the world, in England, in Australia, and in parts of Europe, this pandemic went in a number of surges over a period of time. I have fingers and toes crossed that we only experienced the current surge in New Zealand. And for Auckland, the signs show that we are on the downslope of the current surge. But I I don't think we can ever rule out that there could be a secondary surge that could come in behind, or there could be a variant to the current Omicron variant, which could again have some impacts on our communities. The key message around all of that is that, you know, the most significant tool that we have to deal with and protect ourselves against this pandemic is vaccination. And so, you know, as we move through these changes and the countryside is opening up again, and all of the restrictions come down and we get back to living a daily normal life, in the meantime, our key message as the board, and my key message as chair of the board, is that there are still numbers of our whānau who have not taken the booster vaccination. There are still numbers of our young people aged 5 to 11 who have not yet been vaccinated. And so our key message is to really encourage our families to get well informed around vaccination and to really consider the benefits of vaccination for your own whānau.
And just following on from that, Amberley, with the Prime Minister's announcement today, do you think it'll have an impact on the service that the Pūtiki Hub provides our people, our whānau?
It won't impact our intent and our focus. It may cause strain, though, on supply and demand. So I'm a little bit nervous and I'm a little bit wary around with the removal of the vaccine pass and mandates and, you know, changes to the gathering numbers, whether that might, you know, just might explode exposure and transmission. So our intent for now, Winitana, will remain the same. It's whether, if we should move in that direction, it would be a question of whether we can keep up and keep pace. That, again, you know, like Keith has alluded to, is another unknown. We just don't know.
Indeed, certainly there's an unknown period still to come. I just want to remind our whānau that watching this evening to send in your questions. If you've got a pātai for Keith and or Amberley, you can pop those questions in the comments section below, and we'll ask your pātai very, very shortly. But if I can come to you, Keith, you know, it was mentioned earlier on that the Pūtiki Hub, you know, is a collaborative approach. It's a joint venture with a number of key people such as the DHB, the local councils, representatives from Kura, the food banks, key people in the community. The question is, why was the Maniapoto Māori Trust Board chosen to I guess, lead this out, especially when the tribe is working, you know, through the final stages of the settlement?
A couple of reasons, Winitana. Number one, our people come first, and so you know, as a board, right from, you know, the first time that COVID, you know, became known in our communities, we mobilised within the board when we prioritised the health and well-being of our people. So first and foremost, it was about putting, you know, continuing to focus on our people as front of mind and the needs of our people. But secondly, government resourcing. When governments set aside resources to support community responses, that resourcing was set aside and made available to iwi. I'm not aware of any resourcing that's been made available to local government at all. There's not been any central government resources that I'm aware of that have been established and set up that local government councils could apply to. So the reality for us was that the resourcing that was available through government was made available primarily to Māori health providers through whānau order funding, and also to iwi. So around about October last year, and this was established because there'd been a real delay in the uptake of Māori within our communities getting vaccinated. The government set aside a $120 million fund. $60 million of that was to support whānau to get good information around vaccination, and the other 60 million was to support responses within communities to support families through COVID. So the Trust Board has put an application into both of those funds, and that's the primary reason why the board is in the position that it's in now, essentially being front and centre in terms of the community response, but also being part of a real community partnership and a real community collaboration to put this in place. I really want to acknowledge in particular the three mayors, Jim, Max and John. John has been extremely proactive in supporting this initiative. We also sought community funding, and we were able to get $250,000 from Trust Waikato. So I want to acknowledge Trust Waikato for their support. I want to acknowledge John for his initiative in seeking that funding. And so it's been that funding plus some DHB funding that we've been able to pull together that is resourcing the Pūtiki Hub at the moment.
And just staying with you, Keith, the Pūtiki Hub, is this a one-of-a-kind model within the Waikato region, or are there other hubs with a similar setup around the district?
To be honest, I think we actually developed this idea around hubs. We put this proposal in October last year around setting up a community hub. And the DHB seems to have run with it, and it has established multiple hubs across the whole DHB region. I think there are about 10 in total. So, my understanding is that the initiative to set up a hub like Pūtiki did come initially from our community, and it was what we proposed way back in October last year. It's now what they have got in place across the DHB region. So, I do want to acknowledge the DHB for their support. I want to acknowledge Trust Waikato, and I also want to acknowledge the Ministry of Social Development, who have been supporting our Community Connector team, who are on the ground supporting our families in their homes. So those three organisations have been really critical in terms of the resourcing that we have to date.
Indeed. Coming to you now, Amberly, and specifically looking at the health and well-being of whānau Maniapoto, and I guess the responsibilities of the Maniapoto Māori Trust Board, is there a concern or is there a potential risk that, our own whānau are going to miss out on care and services because the Pūtiki Hub is providing a service and a provision for everyone, for all peoples across all communities and across all districts? Is there a concern there that, whānau might miss out?
With COVID, there's all forms of risk, Wanitana, and quite possibly that could be the case. However, that's where collaboration and partnerships with other kaupapa Māori providers and stakeholders throughout the rohe is absolutely essential to help share the load, to help share the resource, and to ensure that we can respond as a community as best as possible.
Indeed. And just coming back to you, Kathleen, and you kind of touched on the funding aspect a wee while ago, and it was mentioned that the Pūtiki Hub has a lifespan, if you like, of until June this year. Just wondering what's what's going to happen with the Pūtiki Hub after that time period? I know that there is aspirations in terms of funding, but what's the reality of the existence of the Pūtiki Hub after June?
The reality, when you tano, is that we don't have the resources to continue with Pūtiki after the end of June. So right now, we've been able to pull together bits of funding, MSD, DHB, Trust Waikato, to put in place what we currently have. But we can't sustain that post the end of June. And so that's why, we're working really hard collectively as a community to advocate for further resourcing from central government. I'm hopeful that a decision will be made in the coming days. There has been a proposal sitting down in Wellington for some weeks now, and I'm trying not to sound frustrated, but we're expecting that there will be some further assistance forthcoming from government. But the reality is that if that does not occur, we don't have the resources to continue to do what we're doing after the end of June.
Mm-hmm. And just hearing that, Amberly, from Keith, we've got a few weeks between now and the end of June of guaranteed work. In your perspective, is that enough time to really make a difference for our whānau in Maniapoto with the Pūtiki Hub, with the time that's we've got left until June?
Absolutely. I mean, the time is now to respond to our people. So while there's a 30 June time frame, that's a measure for potential funders to help us extend beyond that date. That gap, if you like, doesn't affect our intent or our approach. We're acting now, and we will do so right up until the 30 June date. I'm hopeful also too that we have the opportunity to increase our resourcing and extend further, but that remains to be seen.
Indeed. Don't forget, e te iwi, that you can ask Keith and Amberly questions. You can pop those questions in the comment section of the Facebook page, and we'll ask those to Keith and Amberly. And we do have questions that are coming in now. And let's just take a look at our first question, actually. It's come in from Facebook this evening. And this is from MJ Wehe, and her question is, why has it taken so long for the Maniapoto Māori Trust Board to implement a strategy or hub to support our whānau, hapu, iwi and hapuri, when it should have been a priority back in 2020, 2021, when COVID-19 first appeared in Nehenehenui? And I can see there's a little bit of agreement there, Keith, so maybe if I go to you in this instance.
Yeah, so when COVID first hit in 2020, we did set up the call centre within, I think, the first 7 days of when the country first went into lockdown. All of our staff stopped their day jobs, and we're focused on supporting our families through COVID from that very first announcement around lockdown 2 years ago now. We then started supporting our families by distributing kai. We connected with key players within our community back then, and started stockpiling kai at the Trust Board office and distributing that kai and supporting that kai to be distributed out to our communities. So the call centre has been in place over that whole 2-year period. But what we wanted from around about October last year was to really beef that up. So we wanted the call centre to become much bigger. We wanted it to be a communication hub that would be the connection between the DHB. So as soon as there was a positive case within our rohe, the DHB would let our comms hub know, our hub would connect with our whānau, and from that point in time, we would be supporting our individual whānau members, or the family, collective family, or whānau through that COVID space over that 7 days or over that 10 days. So that's what we wanted. That's what we sought resources for. That's what we sought funding for back in October, November last year. Where I believe things have been really let down has been the slowness of central government to respond. It's been extremely frustrating that we've had to wait, not weeks, we've had to wait months to get some decisions made in Wellington, and for these initiatives to be supported and resourced so that we could do what we believe needed to be done within our community. So I'm just really proud of the whole community here around how we mobilized ourselves, how we all quickly came together, how we worked together, how we focused on a plan, and how we've been able to do some things with the limited resources that we've got. But we could have done, and we should be doing a lot more for our families. And that's the responsibility of central government, to ensure that that resource gets into our community so that we can do what our community needs us to be doing.
Indeed. Just before we go on to the next question, just wondering, Amberley, did you have any comments to add to MJ's pātai there?
Yeah, kia ora, MJ. What I will say, Winitana, is that COVID this year was different from COVID last year and also COVID the year before. So it requires us to re-strategize and reassess and understand, funding available or change of approach or need. So we've over the last 3 years since 2020, we've had to refocus and review and reprioritise accordingly. So yeah, just wanted to note that.
Thank you for that. And thank you, MJ, for your pātai, and I hope that Keith and Amberley have been able to answer that for you. Let's take a look at another pātai that's come in, and this is from Rangitepo, and her question is, kia ora, what is the Pūtiki Hub number, please? And if I can go to you, Amberley, because you spoke about the 0800 number, but is there another number as well that whānau can call?
There isn't at this point yet, Winitana, but through the Here to Help You platform and that 0800 number, we will pick up any support or request supports through Pūtiki. The team is still working on a specific Pūtiki number, but in due course we'll send some comms out once that's ready.
Ka pai. Again, Rangitepo, that number will be advertised shortly. Let's take a look at another question that's come through on our Facebook page, and this question is from Timothy, and she is asking, what's the criteria to receive support from the Maniapoto Māori Trust Board? And so maybe if I can start with you, Keith, and I've got a feeling this question is in relation to COVID and isolation in that regard.
Yeah, so we are working across the whole of the community with our community partners to support everybody in our community who needs support. The only criteria is for those of our whānau who are either a close contact or are a positive COVID case, and who need support. So that's the only criteria. The MMTB is acting as a sort of conduit, as a partner with all of the other key players and partners across our community to do everything we can to get that support out through our community where that support is needed.
Absolutely, and I think this is probably a good time, Amberley, because you mentioned this earlier on, that the service of the Pūtiki Hub is for everyone, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, that's right, Wanitana. So around, our whānau isolating at home, be it individuals, be it large whānau groupings, and those two, who may have been caught short between whatever that might look like. So testing positive can come as a surprise to all. Outside of kind of pay cycles, can be, whānau can be unprepared. So, that's who we'd like to support and carry on supporting.
Ka pai. Thank you, Timothy, for your question. And again, I hope Keith and Amberley have been able to answer that for you. Let's take a look now at another pātai that's coming from our whānau. And this is from Te Arai, and her question reads as tēnā kōrero. 6 weeks ago, our hapuri, in particular our kohanga of Maniapoto, were sent into isolation during phase 2. Tamariki and vulnerable whānau struggled through this. There was no support around via the Maniapoto Māori Trust Board. Many people personally reached out but were declined tautoko. Can you explain this and acknowledge this, please? And maybe if I can throw this to you, Keith, if you're able to respond to this question from Te Arai.
Yeah, well, tēnā koe te arai. I'm really disappointed to hear that has occurred. I am aware of a significant outbreak for the kohanga whānau in Otewa. I know that there was support in place, particularly with our whānau, the food bank whānau at our marae in Otorohanga, who supported those families directly. The MMTB has been working in the COVID support space over the last 2 years. We wanted to be doing a heck of a lot more than what we have been able to do. But, we've had our community connector people in the community on the ground for, I think it's almost 12 months now. We've had our call centre established over the last 2 years. And in the last couple of weeks with the Pūtiki Hub established, we've been able to increase that on-the-ground support and the number of our young people in particular who are part of the call centre. But look, it's really disappointing to see that whānau members have not been able to access support, and I am particularly disappointed to see that there have been that there's been someone that's been declined support. That's the first that I've heard of that happening. It's definitely not what we're trying to do as the Trust Board. We're trying to do everything we can to support our families at this time.
And if I can come to you, Amberley, just with that pātai that's come from Te Arai, is this something that the Pūtiki Hub could have handled, given, I guess, that there's a large number of people involved in the situation?
Absolutely, that's what we're designed for, Wanitana. Noting that, there's large whānau living in single homes. And then there's, in the case of the kohanga reo, that no doubt had an effect across multiple whānau. So absolutely, Wanitana. I do believe, however, that the team did respond to some of the whānau of that kohanga reo, if it is the one in Otorohanga, but perhaps not to the scale that perhaps we knew of all the whānau that could have been affected. So yes, thank you, Wanitana.
Ka pai. And I hope, Jadai, that answers your question for you this evening. Let's take a look at another pātai that's come in, and this is from Milena. And her question is, whānau from within Maniapoto have received support via providers from Hamilton due to so many obstacles from providers within Maniapoto. Are you aware of this happening? And maybe if I can come to you first, Amber Lee, just in this regards, are you aware of this situation? Are you aware of this happening?
An answer for that, Wanitana, could be around providers' capacity being maximised at that particular point in time. And then around obstacles with providers within Maniapoto, I would need to understand what that is or what those are. But I know from a capacity issue, you know, we all have our limits that we can operate, manage or handle. So at times there, we do have to reach out and spread the load. So I probably need to understand a bit more about that pātai.
Keith, just saying, did you have anything to add there?
Yeah, look, I think over the last 3 months there have been 7 different providers within our rohe, and I welcomed them with open arms. What was really important was that our families were getting support, and so there were providers from within Taranaki who were supporting our families in the south. There were providers from within Tūwharetua and Whanganui who were supporting our families in Taumaranui, and there were providers from Hamilton who were also supporting our families throughout northern Maniapoto and into Kāwhia. So yes, I know that there were multiple providers. What was important to us was that our families were getting support, and to be really honest, I didn't care where that support came from, as long as our families were getting access to the support that they need. So I really encouraged providers, regardless of who they were and where they came from, to support our families for those whānau that needed support. Having said that, what was also really important for us was that this was coordinated. And so we really wanted to ensure that there wasn't duplication, that people weren't missing out with multiple providers across the rohe. So coordinating, making sure that, you know, this was being done in a planned way. All of those things were really important with the multiple providers in place. What's happened since then is that about 3 weeks or maybe even 4 weeks ago, the government provided an additional $140 million to the whānau order network throughout the country. And so, you know, that's really the first time that our providers within Maniapoto, who are whānau order providers, that's the Maniapoto Marae Pack Trust and the Taumaranui Kōkiri Trust, that they had access to resource that could then directly support our families over the last sort of four to 5 weeks. So, you know, really what this comes down to is accessing resources and bringing them into our community. That's really what it comes down to. And as a community, we've really mobilized, organized ourselves. We've got things prepared. We're working together. We're working really strongly and positively together. But it's dependent on the resources coming from government. That's where the budget sat. Government said that it had money and put money aside to support communities. And I have to say, Winitana, it's been a hell of a frustration getting that funding decision made in a timely manner in Wellington and getting those resources into our communities where it's needed. It's been a heck of a frustration. I have really lost it a couple of times, and I've had direct conversations with ministers And I've told them that they're useless, because they are. They promised our communities that the support would be there, and it hasn't. And we're not the only region dealing with this. We're not the only iwi dealing with this. The iwi chairs, we come together on a regular basis. We got together last week, and across the motu, iwi are really frustrated because we have been left out to dry on this. It should not have happened. It's not good enough. It's not good enough for a government agency to take 4 months to make a bloody decision on supporting a community in the middle of a pandemic. It's not good enough. And so at the end of the day, who bears the brunt of that? Who suffers because of that? Our families in our community. They bear the brunt of it, because bloody idiots in Wellington can't get it together and sort it out. Sorry, Winitana. I'm a bit grassed off.
Yep, and I think that's certainly it causes a lot of frustrations, especially with the pandemic and the situation that we're all dealing with at the moment. So pai but thank you very much, Keith, for that response there, and Milena tēnā koe, thank you very much for your question as well. Ete, let's just take a look at our final question for this evening, and this question is from Te Miri. And her question is, other than support with kai, what other support can whānau expect to be able to ask for? And I think maybe Amber Lee, you might be able to shed some light on this for Te Miri.
Kia ora, tēnā koe, Te Miri. Other than kai, so sanitation packs, hygiene packs, we have had whānau who haven't, not even connected to power, or have power bills that are in arrears and they are close to power getting cut off. So depending on whānau situations and what's going on around, essential provisions that they need to isolate safely, to isolate comfortably, talking with our navigators at Pūtiki, we can have a look at most things. So yeah, that's thank you, Wanitana.
Papai, tēnā koe, Billy. And also for you, Te Miri, and our whānau that are watching, you can see at the bottom of the screen there the 0800 number to contact should you need support. And it's here to help you, 0800 568 273. But thank you, everyone, for sending in your questions this evening. And I hope that you've got some more understanding that has helped to answer your question tonight. We're going to take a quick look at what's happening for the remainder of this week for our pop-up testing and vaccination centres between now and Friday before we come back and wrap up with Keith and Amber Lee. So looking at your pop-up testing centres for this week, they will be set up, as you can see at the bottom of your screens there, the Miriama Club in Taumaranui, but also the Waipa Racecourse in Te Awamutu, the Kāwhia Health Centre, the Otorohanga Referee Club in Otorohanga, and Te Ora o Ngātai in Te Kuti at the Centennial Park. The vaccination centres will also be operating this week. You can go and get a vaccination and a booster dose from the Te Awamutu Vaccination Centre, at the Anglican Church in Kihikihi, at the Te Pahu Primary School Hall in Te Pahu, the Countdown Car Park in Otorohanga, and the Taumaranui Memorial Hall, and also the Taumaranui Kōkiri Trust in Taumaranui. And we'll keep that information for our whānau to read. The times vary between the locations, so if you do need to find out the opening and closing times and more details about the testing and vaccination centres, then be sure to head to the Waikato DHB Facebook page. Ka pai. Well, certainly this evening we've shared a lot of information and certainly a lot of information for our whānau to take home and probably better understand the situation that we are in at the moment. If I can come to you both for just some final comments, and if I can just start with you, Amberly, just what would be your final comments to our whānau, and probably just some important things that our whānau need to remember when accessing the Pūtiki Hub?
I guess, you know, first and foremost, our whānau, please look after yourself. You know, you matter to someone somewhere. So if, unfortunately, you should test positive, you know, report it. You need to report it in. And then once that's reported in through the New Zealand contact tracing system, the national contact tracing system with our navigators, our call centre operators, we will connect with you. And two, also, you know, I can't you know, stress enough around either a whānau are COVID positive, or if you are aware of COVID positive whānau who are in need, please push it through to Here to Help You, either on the website or through the 0800 number. But otherwise, wanitana, you know, it's still important that our people look after themselves and look after their whānau.
Yeah, indeed. And I guess, Amberly, that, you know, hearing the establishment of the Pūtiki Hub, it's probably the place to be for those that want to support and help with the, you know, I guess the question is, you know, is there any vacancies at the Pūtiki Hub? And, you know, how does one, you know, able to put their hand up to support the kaupapa?
Well, I think what I will mention, Winitana, is we've had some of our people come home from out of the rohe, so willing and able, and say, I'm here, this is my skill set, can I be put to use? And, you know, our newer staff in the Pūtiki Hub have, in some part, really made our job easy, and we are so fortunate to have skilled iwi members return home. So they've come home from Gisborne, from Wellington, from Taupo, even from Northern Waikato, just up the road from Kirikiriroa. So are there any vacancies? No, not at the moment. But, you know, who knows? Things could be different this time next week. We just don't know. You know, COVID is just so unpredictable. So if people have a passion and they believe that they have something to bring to the table to add to the team, pipe it through to our office. And if the occasion arises that we might need to increase capacity, and if we can, yeah, I would certainly love to look at that.
Pai tēnā koe, Amberly. And if we come to you finally, Keith, you know, what would be, you know, some of the key points that our whānau need to consider, need to remember moving forward, you know, especially with the announcement of the changes and the forecasted decline in the numbers from the Prime Minister today. And, you know, you mentioned earlier on the you know, vaccination rates for Māori, for our tamariki, aren't quite where we kind of need them. So, yeah, what would be your final messages to our whānau?
Yeah, we are going through another sort of transition. Things are opening up again. But as Amberly has said, there's still a whole lot of uncertainty around where this could all go, given how you know, given what we've seen around the world, and given how this this whole COVID situation can change quite quickly. I do go back to really encouraging whānau around vaccination. I think it really does come back to that because my personal belief is that that is our strongest weapon in protecting ourselves against the impact of this virus. So we're going through a transition, we're going through some change, and all going well, we do start to open up. We do see a dropping off in the positive COVID cases. We then move into another phase, which is around, you know, this whole community has been really impacted by COVID. Our businesses have been impacted by COVID. Our young people have been disconnected out of school because of COVID. You know, there's a whole lot of healing that needs to happen and a whole lot of support. So as a community, our job doesn't end if we manage to see COVID off. It's even more important that we continue to work together as a whole community and support our families as we transition into the post-COVID space. We are going to need to really rally around our local businesses. They've been hammered, many of them. We're really going to have to rally around a lot of our young kids who just aren't going to school anymore. They went into isolation, they didn't go back to school. You know, those are the things that are really important that we've got to continue to mobilize around and really make sure that we come out of this as strong as we possibly can.
Ka pai. Tēnā koe, Keith. And tēnā kōrero, actually. Thank you very much. Thank you both very much for your expert advice and your insightful explanations this evening. Congratulations on the successful launching of the Pūtiki Hub. And no doubt, that will certainly come in handy for those who are finding themselves in a space where they need a little bit of a hand up. So thank you both for the mahi. Thank you both for what you continue to do mō te iwi o Maniapoto. That's Keith Ikin, Chairperson of the Maniapoto Māori Trust Board, and Amberley Elliott, CEO of the Maniapoto Māori Trust Board. Thank you for your time and thank you very much for allowing us to be a part of your evening tonight. E mihi ana ki a kōrua. Well, e te iwi, tēnā kōrua. That wraps up our session for tonight. We hope that the kōrero shared gives you a better understanding of where and how you can access support. Should you ever find yourselves in a position of having to reach out for a hand up. And, remember, this service is for everyone, not only for you and your whānau, but, your neighbours, your friends, and your work colleagues as well. So please let everyone know that the Pūtiki Hub is up and running. Remember, e te iwi, that MFM will keep you up to date with any breaking news and latest developments across our various platforms. And we will be back soon for another live Q&A here on Te Puna Kōrero or Te Nehenehenui. Thank you for joining us. Look after one another. Stay safe. Take care. Ki te kotahi te waihoe, ka ora te iwi, pō Māori e.